Hello friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Michelle Fondin and I'm the author of Twin Flame Romance, The Journey to Unconditional Love. All of my books are available in paperback, Kindle, and Audible books. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Thank you for subscribing below. Click on that bell, scroll up to all for all notifications. And thank you for giving the video a thumbs up. I do readings, 30, 60, and 90-minute readings, Twin Flame Romance, general readings, life path and purpose. You can book that at my website, michellefondinauthor.com. And don't forget to download the free Twin Flames Affirmation Meditation. The link is below. Welcome to Twin Flame Questions Answered, where I answer one of your Twin Flame questions. And the question today comes from a viewer like you. And this viewer's name is Nadine Wood, who asks, why are so many twin flames experiencing a toxic narcissistic relationship? And that question got my juices flowing. So if you're interested in hearing the answer to that question, please do stay tuned, as it is super intriguing. Now, I really believe that Nadine is specifically referring to the divine masculine twin flame coming off as some sort of narcissist. So first and foremost, what I want to do is comment on this concept. Now, I have gotten definitions, signs and symptoms here from 3 different websites. I did my research before I began to speak. I do feel, however, and you've probably heard me say this if you're not new to my channel, that I believe that the word narcissist is way overused. I mean, everyone is calling everyone a narcissist these days. Now, if you were to look at the times, please just think about the times that we live in. Look at the times, okay? We live in a time of heavy social media, where most people are influencers on social media of some type. Whether their social media is Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube, whatever it happens to be. And often on these social media platforms, it's a look at me type of post. Most of the time, people are posting to gain some sort of like, acknowledgement, comment, get somebody to notice them, especially on formats such as TikTok or Instagram, where you get that more instantaneous feedback. And of course, Twitter and Facebook are probably no different than that. In fact, it's been a long time since I've used either of those platforms. So as you can see, in the world of selfies, in the world of instantaneous fulfillment through different social media platforms, we are in a time period where isolation is very prevalent, where people are more independent, where people are living alone more, where people are very individualistic. And there is this attitude of, if I don't go out there and do it, or if I don't go out there and get it done, that it is not going to get done. So there is this real tendency toward narcissistic patterns and behaviors in society as a whole. Now, let's dig into this a little bit further, because when you look at the tendency to hide behind a screen, all the while saying, look at me, look at me, look at me, through posts, photos, and whatnot, then you are really emphasizing and re-emphasizing this individualistic, self-centered type of behavior. Now let's go even further into the cultures, and in the US, for example, starting back probably in the late 1980s to 1990s, there was this culture of helicopter parents, if you will, myself included, being one of those parents. But I wasn't really a helicopter parent, nor did I really believe in the ideology of the times, where it was like the parents' responsibility to take care of the kids primarily, but in every single activity. It was almost this micromanaging of activities. Now, many parents, myself included, fell into this because there really wasn't any other choice but to drive your kids to these activities. There weren't many chances to have them walk someplace or anything that was less than a driving distance in the place that I lived in. But the one thing that was very prevalent at the time was this concept that everyone is special. That was the concept. Everyone is special. So in virtually every activity that my kids were involved in, there was this sense of everyone being special. So everybody gets a trophy. Everybody gets a certificate. Everybody gets the pat on the back. And when you develop this type of mentality, it goes toward the mentality that I am special, that I am to be given things all the time, whether I deserve it or not. And so when you think about it, the generation of kids that moved up toward being millennials and Gen Zs, they had this concept of I am unique, I am special, but in an inflated sense, not in a normal sense, but rather an inflated sense. So now you have two entire generations who have been revolving around this concept of individuality, the look at me, I am special, I deserve a trophy for everything. Now we wonder why there is this propensity toward this type of behavior, okay? Now, I do not, even with that, I do not agree that everybody is a narcissist. I don't agree with that. And I don't agree with it on the twin flame journey either. Now, one thing you need to take into account is that on the more spiritual side of things, in this more spiritual journey, that divine masculines are embodying what is wrong with societies and humanity at this time. And they have chosen to embody this so that they can heal those traits and start to shift the paradigms for the collective. Now, if you have not yet listened to the twin flame channelings that I've done, I'm going to put the playlist here so that you can hear what angelic guidance has to say, more in particular about divine masculines and what they are learning on this journey and why it might seem like they're so broken, if you will. I would like you to put things into perspective because everyone, yourself included, myself included, everyone can display traits of narcissism on a regular basis, but that does not make you or me a narcissist. The softer term that I like to apply is ego-centered behavior, right? That is the softer term that I like to apply because everyone in some way, shape, or form has some sort of ego-centered behavior at any time. And that is really coming from typically a lot of wounds, right? It's coming from not having balance in your life. So to that end, let's go into the definition of what narcissism is so you can really get educated on what this truly does mean. So I just took a couple of textbook definitions from dictionaries online. I think it was the Merriam-Webster and another one, which I don't know. So it says a person who has an excessive interest in or admiration of themselves, okay? In the quotes, it says narcissists who think the world revolves around them, but that's also very ego-centered behavior. So number 2 was an extremely self-centered person who has an exaggerated sense of self-importance. Okay, so I would say that anybody, for example, who is constantly posting pictures of themselves in order just to get likes probably has a good exaggerated sense of self-importance. Also, a person affected with narcissistic personality disorder, now that is a psychological disorder, which is a lot more rare. That's extremely rare, in fact. So number 4 is a person who is overly concerned with his or her physical appearance. So, that's a very light definition, if you will, because, if you have ever been overly concerned with your physical appearance, that makes you a narcissist, right? According to the definition. So do you see how we can get pigeonholed into these categories, these definitions, when it doesn't really describe the entire person? WebMD goes on to say, while everyone may show occasional narcissistic behavior, true narcissists frequently disregard others or their feelings. They also do not understand the effect of their behavior on other people. Well, what I really want to do first is the 2 definitions of types of narcissism, because I think this is really important to outline, and this is going to help clarify for you why some divine masculines may show signs and symptoms of narcissists or of narcissistic behavior, not true narcissism, but narcissistic behavior. So there are 2 types. There's one called grandiose narcissism, and I think that's the definition that we as a society are more familiar with, right? Grandiose narcissism really means that you think you are better than everyone else and anyone else. There's this sense of entitlement. There's this sense of, needing to roll out the red carpet for them as they arrive. It comes from feelings of inadequacy, really, but they block it out, right? They block it out. And it says, even though they go between feeling inferior and superior to others, they feel offended or anxious when others don't treat them as if they are special. So this is someone who really wants to be treated as if they are special 24/7. And it does come from a deep place of insecurity. So that's grandiose narcissism. Then one thing I had never heard of until I did the research was vulnerable narcissism. So I think that when you, as a twin flame, might refer to a divine masculine, for example, as being narcissistic, it's more this type of narcissism that you're referring to, vulnerable narcissism. So I will read this because I'm very newly familiar with this. It says, this behavior is usually the result of childhood neglect or abuse. People with this behavior are much more sensitive. Narcissistic behavior helps to protect them against feelings of inadequacy. Even though they go between feeling inferior and superior to others, they feel offended or anxious. So these people too feel offended or anxious. Now, with grandiose narcissism, they can sometimes get violent. Whereas vulnerable narcissism, they're more just like anxious people. Grandiose narcissism, they tend to have this exaggerated self-confidence without the sensitivity. Does that make sense? So whereas vulnerable narcissists tend to be extremely sensitive, grandiose narcissists are like not at all sensitive. They're just like, they give off this air as being very confident, and they really don't care about other people's feelings. So let's look at a few of the symptoms, because I think this is really, really, really important. So the first is lack of empathy. It's basically saying a person with narcissism cannot empathize with others. Now, empathy means you feel the way someone else feels. So for example, if you see a kid in your neighborhood who just lost their puppy and they're distressed, sad, and crying, that your heart goes out to them and you also feel sad, distressed, and you might start crying, that is empathy. They can't have those feelings, and they also cannot take responsibility for their own behavior. So number 2 is arrogance. It says people with narcissistic behavior already see themselves as superior to others, so they may become rude or abusive when they don't receive the treatment that they think they deserve. So they will speak rudely to other people. They will act as if they are entitled toward other people. The third one is sense of entitlement. There you go. Again, that has to do with special treatment. So people that are truly narcissists want special treatment all the time. Now, I'm sure you know people like this, or you know people who sometimes have this sense of entitlement where they deserve the special treatment whenever they walk into a place. But narcissistic people tend to feel that all the time, 100% of the time. Another common trait of narcissism is manipulative or controlling behavior. A narcissist will try to first please you and impress you, but then every single time after that, their needs come first every single time, okay? So the narcissist will impress you in the beginning, but then every single time after that, their needs have to come first. Does that make sense to you? So they do have a way of reeling you in order to have you serve them, if you will, or get their needs met first. They have the need for admiration, praise, and admiration all of the time. They need praise and admiration, and not to mention that they will often brag about their accomplishments excessively. It's like this excessive need to brag about who they are, what kind of awards they've gotten, what kind of diplomas they have. They will also give an exaggerated sense of their value and worth. So you will all often hear narcissists say something like, oh, I'm worth $3 million or something. And they will constantly remind you of that, or they'll constantly remind you of like how much they make, like what kind of salary they make, or what kind of cars they drive, but it's this incessant need to prove that they're on top, this incessant need to prove that they are superior to others. They need the validation, but even if they don't get the validation, they will constantly brag about their status, brag about their positions, brag about things that make them superior, that keep them in a position of superiority to others. So as you see from those descriptions, I am pretty sure that, especially from the stories that I personally have heard of divine masculine twin flames. Now, I've coached a lot of twin flames over the years. I've coached, God, I don't know. Let's just be really conservative on the number. I've probably coached close to 1,000 twin flames over the course of 3 years. And, just give or take 300 a year, which, that's pretty minimal. So when you take that sampling, and that's just like as a scientific sampling, it's a soft science, right? A soft scientific sampling. And the stories that I hear about divine masculine twin flames, most of them do not add up to the textbook definition of narcissism. If anything, some of the stories that I have heard measure up to the vulnerable type of narcissism, where there may have been patterns of abuse from their past or neglect from their past, and they're showing up in certain traits of narcissism, but that's only a cover-up to cover up the anxiety and the hurt of, I'm not good enough. I don't feel good enough. I can't measure up. Whereas the grandiose type of narcissism, as you saw, is this constant superiority complex, is this constant like, I'm better than you, I'm more superior than you, I make more money than you, I have a better degree than you, I'm entitled to this or that, which really does not sound like the people that I've spoken with. It doesn't sound like the case with their divine masculine twin flames. And I've also coached divine masculines, and that doesn't sound like the story of the divine masculines that I've coached as well. So I really, really hope that this clarified the definition of narcissism for you, and that you can move more toward why is it that these divine masculines, in some part, right? We're not going to say all. It's false to say all, but these divine masculines in some part have showed up in these ego-centered traits. Like, why have they showed up with these ego-centered traits that maybe seem like they are out of the ordinary or more excessive than the ordinary? And I really believe the answer to a lot of that is many of these divine masculine twin flames have grown up in situations that were not ideal, with a lot of abuse, neglect. They came on board into this world as very sensitive souls. And because they were very sensitive souls, they were hurt and vulnerable to being hurt a lot more. And as a result of being vulnerable to being hurt a lot more, they created these masks, these ego self masks that showed an exterior that was a lot more hardened than the soft, chewy interior that they tend to have. And so that is probably the discrepancy that a lot of divine feminines are perceiving, is this incongruence with who their divine masculine really is inside and the exterior that they happen to be showing them. So I hope this was helpful, Twin Flame. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for subscribing to my channel below. Click on that bell, scroll up to all for all notifications. And thank you for giving the video a thumbs up. Thank you for sharing this video with other Twin Flames. And thank you so much for your support of my YouTube channel. You can buy a book or 2 or 3. You can join a boot camp or a meditation course. You can also join my group coaching. The link is below. And I will see you in the next video.